Welcome in, brand new Jock Market Power Hour for this week's AT&T Byron Nelson. I'm Rick Gaiman, that right there. Joe Idoni. Joe, hello to you. Happy Power Hour Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday to you as well, and everyone joining us for the show. Excited to break it down with you once again, man. We are a week away from our second major championship of the season, so have started, as I'm sure you and everyone has, some early prep, but not overlooking the opportunities we have this week for the Byron Nelson as well.
Yeah, that's right. We can do both. We can look ahead to Oak Hill and start getting a feel for it, but we can give our week this week the attention it deserves. That's exactly what we are going to do. We've got the next hour or so to see how this IPO finishes up. So if you are just jumping in right now and you're like, what in the world are we doing? We're playing stock market DFS, and the market is hot right now. Things are happening, and you can bid on shares of golfers if you're one of the high bidders when this IPO closes around 9 p.m. Eastern time tonight. Those shares are allocated to you, and then there are guaranteed payouts. How hot is this already? Well, we just got to bid in on Austin Smotherman. Doug Gim has got to bid in on him. Tano Goya. That's where we are at here, Joe. Everybody's available. Everybody's taking action.
Everybody's got a price. So we've got Gim and we've got Tyrrell Hatton back-to-back with bids there. So it's hot early. As we know, the last 5 minutes are always electric, but we see some, it's interesting this week because we kind of had, I don't want to call it a similar scenario, but in a way it was, where we had a very heavy favorite at Mexico a few weeks ago and records shattered in terms of IPO price. And we have Scotty tonight coming into this event at sort of a relatively similar outright odds price. The public perception on him is at an all-time high, probably coming into this event. So anxious to see over the next 40 minutes how close he can get to that mark that John Rahm said a few weeks ago.
Yeah, so let's show some tangible examples here. And Joe mentioned it, a couple weeks ago, we got John Rahm to break the all-time record. We probably won't get there tonight, but we'll probably get pretty close with Scotty Scheffler. But here's last week. Last week was Wyndham Clark selling on Wednesday night for $5.36. He got the full payout, $25 a share. So you made $19.64 of profit for every share of Wyndham Clark that you owned. Xander Schauffele sold for more, did not win the golf tournament, but still returned a profit. He went from $8.55 to $20 a share. That's $11.45 of profit per share. A similar return for Tyrrell Hatton, $11.50 per share. Harris English had a great week. He was much cheaper, $12.52. So you can see, Joe, that the $3, $4, and $5 range really did some heavy lifting last week, and we saw a couple of guys really put together some solid performances and returns.
Yeah, absolutely. It was kind of unique in a sense in terms of an elevated event where we really saw that $3, $4, $5 range sort of prevail. Obviously, it's sort of accentuated by Wyndham Clark there, but you see the massive ROI for guys like Michael Kim. This just kind of encompasses the task at hand in Jock Market, and that it doesn't necessarily revolve around finding the winner. And if you miss Wyndham Clark and if you miss Xander Schauffele, you still have plenty of opportunities there. I had another a great week for my portfolio, but that's really what it's about building, is continuing to stack guys in there who incrementally will get you a little bit of ROI at a time. Like I didn't have anyone in the top 5, but I had Scott, I had Sung J M, I had Max Homa. So each one of these guys who are doubling your money consistently over and over, if you can stack multiple of those options within your portfolio, ultimately at the end of the week, you return a little bit of a profit. You start with a bigger bankroll coming into this week of the Byron Nelson, and you continue to try to build that week after week. So it's a really fun and unique way to play a fantasy sport.
Yeah, it's really not at all about finding the winner. It's much more about finding guys that are going to beat their expectation, with their IPO being their expectation. Some guys, the better golfers, will have a higher expectation. The lesser golfers will have a lower expectation, but it doesn't matter. The bar is different for everybody. And if they get over that bar, they return you a profit. It's actually quite simple. Now, Joe, before we move along here to a couple of games we like to play, let me show you the all-time highs. Now, we've been doing this. I think the first cash market ever was the Tour Championship of 2020.
Correct.
Okay. So we're coming up on 3 years, right, of cash markets. Last The four most expensive instances ever have all been John Rahm, and the record we broke it a couple weeks ago at Mexico, 1551. I don't think Scotty Scheffler is going to get to 1551, but does Scotty Scheffler break up John Rahm at the top here as being one of the highest, 3 or 4 IPOs ever?
Yes, I think that he probably slides himself into that number 2 slot, Rick, this week, and we'll see how this continues to play out. But I don't think he encompasses 1550 in that benchmark that Rom sent. But I think he can get to $13, and I think that's a realistic expectation for him this week, coming in sub 4-1 on an odds board. And what's so cool to kind of see there is the top 5 highest priced stocks ever in the jock market. 4 of those 5 actually returned you a profit, and only in one of those situations did the player actually win the tournament. So it just kind of showcases another example of how you're just attempting to beat an expectation benchmark.
Here's Scotty Scheffler's most expensive IPOs ever. The most recent Masters, the 2023 Masters, he was 1195. He did not win and he did not turn you a profit, but he paid out $10.50 per share. So it was a small loss on Scotty there. He turned you a small profit at the Houston Open. He's been okay. He's been okay. A couple of these cheaper $10 or $10.50 weeks were better returns, but Scotty certainly seems like he's going to be etching his name into the record books here over the course of the next 40 minutes or so. Before we jump into the bullish or bearish and the full-on jock market, stock market side of things, we do have to remind people that starting at the Masters, jock market released the prop pick'em side of things here, Joe. And it's the secondary way to play on jock market. And we thought it'd be a good idea to continue that discussion. We've got some props that I think we find interesting and also allude to that side of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. I have one in terms of the round 1 scoring average that I really like. I believe you do as well. You want me to go ahead and start?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. Tyrrell Hatton, 68 strokes in the first round. I like him to go under that. I think that sets a 3 under mark. And you had a good reminder for me before we went hot here that they actually did manipulate par this year into a par 71. So it in terms of the scoring average will play a little bit more difficult because now they're operating with 1 par 5 last year, playing as a par 4. That said, the guy's been red hot with the ball striking numbers. Another good finish last week at the Wells Fargo. You see those consistent numbers there, and he's a guy that I like to feel tends to start out pretty hot. He's very consistent and finds himself up there on Sundays. I like him to go 4 under on the opening day, which I think is a fair mark for the number 2 player on the odds board this week. And, ultimately, if he goes 3 under, it's going to push. So it's not on one of those 0.5. So it gives you a little bit of flexibility there as well. I like Tyrrell Hatton under 68.
Yeah, you know what? We were kind of in the same wavelength because I also found an under 68. Mine was Tom Kim's. And the thing that I also liked about this is both Hatton and Kim go out early on Thursday morning, and that is seemingly likely to be the better side of things. That wind looks like it's going to kick up a little bit on Thursday afternoon and potentially into Friday morning. So getting out early on a fresh golf course that nobody has stepped on yet and going low is exciting. And Tom Kim is basically back. I say basically because the ball striking is back. His approach play is strong again. He has not found that hot putter like we saw at Wyndham or like we saw in Las Vegas, for example. But it feels like we're about to get some big time play from Tom Kim coming up. I like the direction that he's trending in. And we've got 2 guys to go under 68 in round 1. So, Joe, if we just for round numbers in the example here, so if we take those 2, put $100 on it, I imagine it's 300 in return.
Correct. 3-1 payout, assuming that you hit both. Now, you can add more to these parlays, and you can do options where you just have to hit 2 of the 3, and there's different payouts and ways that you can play it. But very cool way. They also have round 1 birdies or better available for a number of players. So all you have to do if you're on the Jock Market app, it is still, as far as I know, only available on the mobile app. You will see it along your bottom tabs. You'll see your traditional markets on the far left. One of those middle buttons there on the bottom of your screen will say pick 'em. Click that. You're going to look for the little golf flag icon, and that will bring up the PGA. And obviously, NBA playoffs are heating up. NHL playoffs are heating up. They have those options in there. You can sort of mix and match players from different sports, which is very cool also.
Yes, that's right. You can go cross sport and get involved. If you need the $100 deposit bonus, the link is in the description. $100 to you. The code is POWER. Okay, let's play bullish or bearish. This is our chance to take 4 golfers and take a stand on them in one direction or another. We would be remiss if we did not talk about Scotty Scheffler. Joe, I will already tell you, he is over his all-time high. Okay, so
Really?
he is at 1201 right now. Now his fair value is still $13.47. So that's going to ask Scotty to finish about 6th or better. Bullish or bearish on Scotty Scheffler?
Oh man, this is hard, man. I'll just say bearish, just because I'm not in the. I just don't think it's wise over time to buy a player at his all-time high. Now, I realize that we just showcased that in 4 of the 5 instances, I would be very wrong. Scotty's playing incredible. Over the last 36 rounds, extremely underrated. He's gaining almost 2.5 strokes on the field per round, and he's doing so without basically gaining anything with the flat stick. He's doing it nearly all on approach and off the tee. He's awesome. This is a great course setup for him. Part of me has some concerns that the price point is too high, and maybe there's a bit of an overlook factor in sort of focus and attention shifted toward next week for him. But I do think all systems will be go. But this is the one place I think I would be okay being bearish on Scotty.
Yeah, I think your sentiment around just simply not buying guys at all-time highs, that resonates with me. I think in most places, whether it's here in the stock market, whether it's or the jock market, whether it's in the stock market, whether it's in like literally anything in life, buying high and selling low feels like a pretty bad idea. So I'm with you here. The one thing that I will point out is it does feel compared to some of the other big guys that Scotty is seemingly safer, right? He's now in like a 13 tournament stretch in which he's finished top 15 or better. So top 15, while that's not going to turn you a profit, like it's not going to bankrupt you, right? If you finish, if he finishes 13th in this event and returns $9.50 per share off of $13, like you will lose, but you like Scotty's much less likely to wipe you than Rory. Like Rory's wiped you twice in his last 4 starts, for example, right? So it does feel like Scotty is the safer version of the superstars at the top.
Yeah, I would agree. It definitely Scotty and Rahm, I think, are in a caliber of their own in terms of safety with a floor right now, where you have a little bit more risk that you take on with Rory. I'm just trying to pull up the top 5 odds. So Scotty is minus 115. Are the best odds available to top 5 this week. So you're getting better than that and a chance to hopefully by the end of the market still close to double your money up per share on Scotty Scheffler if he does end up being able to pull through for that victory.
Next up is KH Lee, and this is absolutely KH Lee week. He has won both of the events here at TPC Craig Ranch. He is sporting the 9th pre-rank tonight. That is an $8.34 fair value, which is asking KH Lee to finish 16th or better. Are you bullish or bearish on KH Lee?
Oh, bear down, man. This can't happen again, right? I don't know. Like last year, I felt like, okay, I am normally a proponent of some course history when I'm sort of using some analytics and looking at some data on players. The pendulum has swung too far in the opposite direction here. Even last year, he came into this thing like 100-1. Now he's like your 5th or 6th guy on the odds board. I know he played great last week, but he also had his best putting performance of the entire season, and that is the most variable, unsustainable stat from week to week. You see there his putting performances throughout the year. Like rarely is it back to back, like really good putting weeks. There's ups, there's down, there's gain 3, there's lose 3, there's gain 2, there's lose 2. That's how putting stats work. So relying on him again to potentially gain over 6 strokes putting, I think is a tall ask for him. As you see, the approach numbers have been on one week, off one week as well. There's just so much inconsistency, and now you're going to pay an all-time high price on KH Lee. I'm out.
Yep. I agree with you. Listen, I think that this has just been a perfect storm of things to generate the buzz around KH Lee. Not only is it 2 in a row, but it's the only 2 events at TPC Craig Ranch, right? So no one has ever stepped foot at TPC Craig Ranch at the AT&T Nelson and won except for KH Lee. Then, of course, just as he's gearing up for the crack at 3 in a row, he's got his best finish since basically the start of the year. And he does it in a way that's probably the least sustainable way. And now the betting markets are flying. It's just like, this is a perfect storm of too much excitement. If he goes off at 25-1 and wins this golf tournament for the 3rd straight year, hat tip, I will not have any money at all involved here. But this is an absolute trap that feels like a lot of people are ready to step into.
Yep, agree.
Tough scene. Adam Scott. Adam Scott is next, and I'll start here, Joe, because it goes with our sentiment about kind of buying high, selling low. So Adam Scott tonight is the 5th pre-rank. It's a good pre-rank. 927 is his fair value. That's going to ask him to finish 13th or better. I saw a guy last week who gained 5 strokes on approach, his best in a year, who gained 5 strokes putting, his best since August. So this is very simply a guy who is at a 52-week high on approach, basically a 36-week high with his putter. Before that, it had been a lot of middling results and playing out of the wrong categories. This also feels like regression is about to hit Adam Scott very, very swiftly here. And if he finishes 19th, listen, if he finishes 19th, great week. Great week. You have lost money in the jock market. It's too expensive for me.
We're in lockstep once again. I'm bearish as well. I'd love to have sort of a contrarian opinion to you there on the other side of the coin, but what you said makes total sense. Gaining 5.2 strokes putting, and I saw a miss about a gimme on Sunday as well, Rick, when he started to make a little run there. So not a good look. Plus, you have to factor in, like, I'm looking at his IPO history. The highest IPO I've seen in the last calendar year was actually at the AT&T Byron Nelson last year. He was $6.19. So you're asking me if you're going to get to that fair value projection to pay up another $3 on an event last year where he still lost you an ROI at an all-time high IPO price, coming off his best putting week. Kind of similar things we just said about KH Lee. It's just too unsustainable and too variable to buy back in the second week after a great putting performance.
Finally, as if there wasn't enough confusion and questions or anything else that's going on, I think we had 10 different WDs between Monday and Wednesday. How about Hideki bot? Hideki Matsuyama is back in the field. Now, his pre-rank, not nearly as good as it should be, 10th. $8.17 for the fair value. That's asking Hideki to finish 17th or better. Are you bullish or bearish, Joe?
All right, so let me give one caveat. I don't think he gets there. I think there are withdrawal concerns. I think there are legitimate injury concerns. I think that you're probably going to be able to get him around $7 a share. I'm bullish there on Hideki, actually. I don't mind the injury concerns. I feel like, gosh, I know he flew back to Japan. If something was really lingering and a real concern, why play the week before a major championship? That in itself, him just showing up here in a non-elevated event to play, has me somewhat optimistic. The other thing that has me optimistic is back-to-back-to-back top 16 finishes for him. In 3 consecutive markets, he's been able to return you a pretty substantial ROI from the Valero, the Players, and the Masters. I know he has not played a lot, but he is normally a guy who is great on these type of courses. I am going to be bullish on a Hideki week and hope to get a good price. And just like we talked about selling on guys at an all-time high, this might be an opportunity to buy on one of the better ball strikers in the field at a lower than average price.
So I genuinely don't know, right? I don't know how I feel about Hideki. I agree that he's a WD risk, but I agree, like, if you were 50-50 on it on Wednesday, why would you play? I think that he has actually been playing much better golf as of late than during that other slump where he was kind of more injured and stuff like that at the end of last year. I do think in general, you want to get Hideki in the formats that reward game theory and being different. If Hideki was 40% owned in DFS, I would want nothing of him. If he was 2% owned, I'd be very, very interested. right? Just because for all of the risk that you are taking, you need to be rewarded for that. So I think that this format, the jock market format, does lend itself a little bit better to that type of game theory and you know, finding a different expectation than what others have.
Right.
So I will cautiously say bullish on Hideki Matsuyama.
Yeah, this is the spot. I'm with you there. This is the spot where I want him in jock market.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. If there's going to be other places, this is probably one of the better spots for him. Okay, we are going to unveil the big board here. We've got about 23 minutes until this IPO closes. So get your bids in now. I can see there's a ton of action coming in as we speak, and we'll see how this market is shaping up here. If you want to get involved in either the props or in the jock market, the code you're looking for is power. There's a link in the description. That'll get you the deposit bonus. There it is. Scotty Scheffler 1201. That's already his own all-time high. So he has broken through that, and basically not much else between Scotty Scheffler and Brandon Wu. Brandon Wu at 521, and then two guys in the $4 range, Harry Hall and Dylan Wu. So all those bigger names, Terrell Hatton, Jason Day, Tom Kim, Adam Scott, Siwoo Kim, have not moved. We are, I guess, going to see a flurry towards the end of this IPO.
Yeah, that appears what it's going to be. It looks like the bids, obviously, like you mentioned, came in very early on Scotty. We've got some time here. There's my guy Dylan Wu already getting some love with Brandon Wu up there also. But yeah, we're going to see the bigger name guys, the Hattons, the Scotts, obviously get a very big run here and push late. It just depends on ultimately what price they were able to reach and hold at.
Last 10 starts for Dylan Wu.
Whew.
73% ROI. It's the second best in the market behind Jimmy Walker. Brandon Wu, not so bad himself, 45% ROI on average. That is just it's the same as Terrell Hatton for half the price, is essentially what that has been over his last 10 starts. So a lot of different ways to get it done here in terms of ROI, but both Dylan and Brandon Wu have been very, very good. And then you get kind of a list of names, Joe, that are like low key, like industry darlings. Like Jimmy Walker's been playing a lot better. I think he's got 4 straight top 25 finishes. Vincent Norman getting a lot of love this week. Carson Young as well. So it's like people have at least made their first bids on Scotty and their favorites.
Yes, Scotty and the favorites. Jimmy Walker, you mentioned in the top 10 markets, is there as well. Eric Cole was another name I saw you had up there that I've heard quite a bit this week. And players like Vincent Norman, right? Guys who are able to really accentuate taking driver. Like, this isn't a golf course, in my opinion. And you tell me if I'm wrong, that is extremely penal off the tee for a big miss. Gives players the opportunity to pull driver out of the bag quite a bit and be aggressive and try to shoot very low scores. With a lot of these guys with the Korn Ferry Tour are used to these type of environments. I don't know. Last year played as, I believe, the 3rd easiest on the PGA Tour schedule. I worry a little bit about where it's at, in the sense that I don't know that it's great prep the week before a major championship for some of these players, but that's ultimately the task that they have in front of them this week. And I think it sets up better for a lot of those guys who are used to playing easier golf courses, better scoring conditions, and just going out and try to hunt for birdies.
Jimmy Walker has 4 straight triple-digit returns with those 4 top 25. So he has been on an absolute, I don't know what he's been up to, but it is pretty darn magical. If we flip this around, Joe, you look at the rest of the guys in the top 10 that are still waiting to get some movement here. I'll kind of lump Jason Day, Tom Kim, and like Siwoo Kim together. Is there one of those guys that you would prefer over the others?
I think Tom Kim first for me. Just, you mentioned a lot of the positive performances. Basically, since the Masters, he seemed to have found something with his irons there and made a little bit of an adjustment where he's had, a 16th, a 7th, and a 23rd place finish since. This should be a course setup that's pretty good for him. I have some concerns about Jason Day. Obviously, a bad miscut last week at a place where there was good course history. The vertigo flared up again at the Masters and was a bit of a disappointment there after coming in extremely hot form. And then the other one down the list is Siwoo. And Siwoo is just one of those guys that was really consistent there for a while, which is abnormal for Siwoo Kim to start the season. Now we've seen some more missed cuts, a 43rd in there. We've seen that inconsistency start to creep back in. The putting woes have returned a little bit. I think there's a lot of upside with a player like Siwoo, but some of the downside concerns me in a place like Jock Market when you have an extremely volatile stock that is Siwoo Kim.
Yeah, I mean his stat profile has been pretty darn good over the past, handful of months. Obviously, the win at the Sony was the second of consecutive. They were months apart, but like consecutive starts where he was just absolutely flushing it. So him gaining 7 or 8 strokes on approach is like always out there. Then the bottom half of this top 10 is, I think it's definitely a drop off, Joe. And the pre-rank's important because that's how we break ties here. But like Seamus Power, Taylor Montgomery, KH Lee, and Hideki, who we talked about, the Power and Montgomery stuff is interesting. Montgomery has fallen off pretty significantly. He's got 2 big losses in a row. He's got, 7 losses in his last 8. It just hasn't been good for Montgomery, but it feels like Seamus Power's trying to get out of the slump that he was in, right? Like Seamus might be on an upward trend with a TAT at the Wells Fargo, but Taylor Montgomery looks pretty lost out there.
Yeah, he's lost with the irons, particularly losing almost, over half a stroke per round over the last 36 rounds on approach. He's still got the putter working for him, but that can only carry you so far if the irons are as off as they've been. Miscut at the Heritage, miscut at the Wells Fargo. The team event, I'm not really considering in there. Valero, Texas Open, a 22nd. So nothing really to write home about for Montgomery in the last 2 months. And you mentioned a positive performance to maybe get himself headed back in the right direction for Seamus Power this week. That might be someone that I'm interested in. And then what are your thoughts on Matt Kuchar? Some very solid performances, and he seems like a guy that is great for Jock Market in terms of a very high floor. He's making cuts, and he's really, I'm looking like his last 4 starts, nothing worse than 23rd. So if you can get that type of upside in a potential top 10 where you don't need him to win, and you feel more confident in getting that top 25 mark, you can basically pay up a little bit for Cooch.
Yeah, this is about as good as it's going to get for Kuchar. It's a weak field. He's played twice in Texas in his last 4 starts. Both have gone well. His last 4 in general have been very good. He has played well at this event in the past. You mentioned usually with a higher floor than most. I think this is about as good as you're going to get for Kuchar is the way that I feel when you start looking at the schedule and you start looking at the way he's playing and all that fun stuff. There's Tom Kim. $9.55. So he went from $1 about 3 minutes ago to $9.55. You can see Eric Cole is getting bids right now, and Eric Cole is now the 3rd most expensive golfer in this market at $5.56. So we're seeing those bids starting to come in. Brandon Wu's hot on the heels. He's still firing up the board here, but some pretty interesting names, and we just saw Tom Kim get a very big bump. Let's see what else we have going on here. Michael Kim is 333. I just saw a bunch of bids come in on him. He's been a winner in 5 straight, Joe. Does he continue that streak again this week?
Man, this came out of nowhere. This is like Jimmy Walker-esque. Wells Fargo, Quail Hollow last week was not a place you would expect Michael Kim or Jimmy Walker to both contend at, but they've been able to do it. They're somehow gaining strokes off the tee while not hitting it very long. I feel like you're probably are going to be at a point this week where you're going to pay a much higher IPO price than you've paid in any of the last 5, and it may be time to pump the brakes a little bit on Michael Kim.
All right, fair enough. He's currently at $3.33, which is asking him to finish, pretty low, 49th or better, but he is his fair value is $4.39, which is a little bit closer to 39th place. I imagine he's going to go over that with the way that we're already seeing this market shape up right now. So now you're talking probably about top 25 finish. So things start to add up pretty quickly here over the course of the next 14 minutes or so. Scotty Scheffler now through $13 per share, which I believe there it is. That's the 2nd most expensive IPO ever.
There you have it, 13 per share. That is just over the mark where you get to 25 for the double up. But Scotty coming in at 3.5 to 1. I think it was predictable he was going to get there. You think he passes Rahm?
No.
Okay.
No, I think Rahm. We see it here since we started doing this. There's been an air of Rom in these markets where he has just always been the guy.
Yeah.
And I think it's obvious that he's got the 4 most expensive, or now I guess 4 of the 5. But no, for him to get to, I mean, Rom's odds were shorter in Mexico. I think people perceive him better than Scotty Scheffler. So no,
Right.
I think he'll fall somewhere, 1350, something like that.
I would agree. Yeah, I think this field has a little bit more strength to it at the top with Hatton, Hideki, Kim, Day, Scott. Those names are a little bit more threatening than what you had in Finau and basically Woodland.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so looking at the top 10 golfers here. So we are still sitting at a buck for Jason Day, a buck for Adam Scott. We've got about 13 minutes to go. Buck for Seamus Power. Let's just keep going a little bit further. I like Christian Bezuidenhout. He does the two things that I think you're going to have to do well: hit good approaches, putt it well. He does both of those things. He's a winner in 3 straight markets. Is there anybody from kind of Bez down to Aaron Rye, this 11 to 20 range, that you think you're going to get in on?
I feel like he's been very popular, so I do have him favorited, but I'm going to continue to monitor the price. But Stefan Jaeger has been really solid. He's on approach has been right up there with like Tom Hoagie numbers, right up there with Tyrrell Hatton numbers. Like he's been very, very solid over the last 36 rounds. As you see there, he's gaining strokes on approach in almost every event that he tees it up. Managing to finish 27th in an elevated event while losing 4 strokes putting is impressive in itself. Top 20 the week prior while losing almost 4 strokes putting. That's impressive in itself. So he's been able to put together these performances despite having any sort of momentum with the flat stick. If he can somehow have an even putting week on a place where I feel like the greens are relatively benign, we're back to bent grass, which is a bit of a change up from the last 2 weeks. Which saw the Bermuda and the past Palom that he did not putt well on. So maybe that could work in his favor a little bit this week, but he's really flushing it right now off the club face.
Here comes KH Lee, now up to $6 per share. Still plenty of room to his fair value, but right now that's asking him to finish 28th or better. He will obviously continue up the board. Tom Hoagie just saw a big run up to $6.01. He's getting much, much closer to his own fair value for tonight, which is $6.21. We're starting to see the $4 and $5 range fill in a little bit as well. Adam Scott, the 5th pre-ranked golfer, up to $5.20. Tyrrell Hatton, the 2nd pre-ranked golfer, up to $3.95, and Seamus Power, the 7th pre-ranked golfer, up to $3.33. So we are now seeing all this movement come into play. Let's continue further down the board. Outside of those 20th placed guys in the projected rank, I think both of us are fans of Matthew Neesmith, Joe.
Yes.
It has not been the year that Neesmith has wanted. He will be the first to tell you that. But gets a little partner love at the Zurich. They make a deep run, T4 there. Then he starts ball striking it again at the Wells Fargo Championship. Are we seeing signs of this slump ending?
Very positive signs last week, being able to top 35. Another guy who lost significant strokes putting, who was able to counter that with still having quite a good finish. And that's really all that we're worried about in Jock Market, is that finishing position. So yeah, definitely positive signs. I think that there's something to sort of build on with the performance at the Zurich as well. And he's moving in the right direction.
Yeah, certainly moving in the right direction. That's a good way to put it. A little bit further down the board, you see some of the more popular names who are already up in the $4 and $5 range. They're living here in the 30s. That's where we find Eric Cole or Will Gordon or whatnot. So we can continue on past that. We've talked about a lot of these guys. As we get down outside of the 40s and the 50s, it's guys like MJ Duffy, Martin Laird, Carl Yuan. Is there a name or two here? Dylan Wu, we've talked about a lot. He's been phenomenal. He's at 406 right now.
Yeah, Woo's going to be up there. He's been crushing it and printing money. Another guy who's been pretty solid, and I talked about the approach numbers, which I'm looking at a little bit more heavily this week when I talked about Steven Yeager. But Sam Stevens has been really good, too. A good performance at the Valero Texas Open, where he finished 2nd about 2 months ago. That was on the heels of a 3rd place finish at the Corrales. which we had a Jock Market Power Hour for that week because it was an off week for match play. So he's had a couple of very solid finishes and returning you some solid ROI as well. 47th last week at the Wells Fargo was nothing great, but I think a little bit of comfort level coming back to Texas maybe this week. And as long as he continues to gain a half stroke on the field with his irons per round, he's going to continue to post good results.
Yeah, certainly is. Okay, let me refresh this board. We are about 8 minutes away from this IPO closing. We're going to let Joe get his bids in here in just a minute or two, but there is a deposit bonus waiting for you in the description. The power, or the code, excuse me, is power. That'll get you your $100 deposit bonus. You can find that link down there. And here we go. This market getting just much more mature now, Joe. 1301 for Scotty. Tom Kim up to 955. Terrell Hatton 744. I'm actually a little bit surprised, and I guess it doesn't have to stay. We've got time, but that Tom Kim has solidified himself as the second most expensive. I imagine we're going to get a run on Terrell Hatton.
We got to get a run on Hatton. He's going to get close to that $10 mark, I think, and finish second. He's been playing so well. He's been on the precipice. He was once again at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. He followed that up at the Players Championship with a good finish as well. He's such a good player, Rick, and being able to capitalize on form is such a difficult thing to do. But when you have an opportunity like this with really only one other player clear of the odds board on you, really only Scotty Scheffler to slay, if he's able to slip a little bit like he did last year in this event, it could present a great opportunity for Hatton to sort of cash in on those FedEx Cup points, cash in on that great form. And I think that he's definitively probably the second best player in this field.
All right. Well, get after it, Joe. It's about that time.
All right, Ben.
You've been crushing it. Yeah, another great week. Last week, we are looking forward to seeing what your portfolio looks like here in just a few minutes.
Talk soon.
All right, buddy. All right. I'll take you the rest of the way here. Joe is trying to bid on golfers. You are trying to steal golfers from him. It ends up being a nice little dynamic. We'll check in with him in a couple minutes and see how everyone fared. So as I take you through the live pricing here, I will point out Scotty Scheffler remains at 1301. It's the second most expensive IPO ever. So we are in historic times. It's not even at his fair value yet. His fair value is 1367. At the fair value, that's going to ask him to finish about, well, I'll go for his current price. $13 is about seventh or better. Seventh or better is what Scotty's going to have to finish. So that's kind of your break-even point there. Tom Kim, very, very popular right now, $9.55. And here comes Terrell Hatton, $9. So this is the gap. He just closed about $1.50 in the last 90 seconds ago. And the early hesitancy on Jason Day has subsided. He is now the fourth most expensive golfer in the Jock market at $8.09 per share. He's also the third pre-ranked golfer. So kind of expected him to be up here. Hideki Matsuyama, 765. A lot of questions. Not a lot of answers for Hideki, but he is about 50 cents away from his fair value tonight with Adam Scott, KH Lee, Matt Kuchar, and Tom Hoagie rounding out the $6 range. Compared to their own fair values, Adam Scott has a lot of room to go. He's still $2 and some change short of his fair value. Down that $5 range, some guys that I like, Eric Cole and Brandon Wu and Siwoo Kim, all residing in the mid fives right now with the $4 range home to Dylan Wu, 64th in the pre-rank. Dylan Wu has been a winner in 4 straight cash markets. He's been a winner in 7 of his last 8. He's been a winner in 8 of his last 10. I mean, the guy is he's been a winner in 12 of 14. I mean, he's a crusher. He's an absolute crusher. Dylan Wu playing great golf and constantly beating expectation. Got about 5 minutes to go here. I want to flip this around and look at the top 10 golfers and see where they rank. The point being here that pre-rank is important. It's how we break ties. So Scotty Scheffler breaks all ties. He wins the full share no matter what, and no matter how many golfers he ties with for that position. As of right now, the cheapest $10 golfer that you can get is the toxic Taylor Montgomery. He is $1.25 with 4 minutes to go. He has been a big loser in 2 straight. He has lost in 6 out of 7. The one win was a small win. It has not been good for Monty, and the markets are saying no mas for Taylor Montgomery. Outside of that, everybody else already up into the $6 range, $7 range, and obviously much more if you are looking at someone like Scotty Scheffler. Christian Bezuidenhout, I mentioned it before. It's been really good. 3 straight wins. Players, Texas Open, RBC Heritage, 2 of those were obviously stacked fields, and now he gets a much weaker field back in Texas this week. Could be a pretty decent spot to buy into his skill set. Mav McNeely, another guy with a lot of question marks and not a lot of answers. He's lost in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 straight markets, still at $1 a share. Hasn't moved off of that. I'm sure he'll get a little bit of love, just not sure about how much it's actually going to be. 3 minutes to go, about 3 minutes until this IPO is closed. We have not seen Scotty Scheffler move off 1301 in about 2 or 3 minutes. So he's been stuck there while the rest of the board gets tight behind him. Big mover in the last couple minutes. Steven Yeager up to $5.80. That's basically right on his fair value. So we would expect him to kind of settle in right around this price. That would ask him to finish about 29th or better. We'll see if there's any love that can get him inside the top 25. A little bit further for some guys we haven't talked about. Ben Griffin, 506. That's $1.30 short of his fair value. Aaron Wise back at it again for the first time since the match play. He's struggled, but took some time off and back at it again. He's got a pretty generous pre-rank, all things considered, 19th. He's got $2 and then some, or about $1.50 to get to his fair value for a night. He's 471. Might be worth taking a stab on. And then some of these real penny stocks on page 2 that I know some guys like to live down in here, like Sean O'Hara's played pretty decent golf as of late. $2.54 right now. Last time we saw him, I believe it was Mexico, but then it was Zurich. He made a deep run to Zurich. It was a lot of birdies being made there as well. Okay. I got 8:58 Eastern time on my clock. So we are a minute, 90 seconds or so probably away from this thing closing. We just got a huge jump on Scotty Scheffler. He is now at 1369. So that is through his fair value. And again, still the second highest IPO ever. Tom Kim and Terrell Hatton are tied, $9.55 a piece. So those two are carving out a nice little second tier. I think we are moments away from closing. It is 8:59 p.m. Eastern time.
We're close, buddy.
There we go. We are.
Shut it down.
I knew we were moments away. We were literally
ring the bell.
Literally moments away. Okay. We're going to let the dust settle here and see what the final pricing came to be. Wow. I see it. Yikes. Wow. Scotty laid a big number.
Man.
Scotty laid a very big, it's not the John Rahm number, but it's a very big number.
Okay.
We'll wait for it to come over here. Okay. Do you have your golfers in your portfolio available?
I do. Yep.
All right. Let's go through that whenever you're ready.
Here's who we're rolling with this week. Tyrrell Hatton. 1021 was the bid on Tyrrell. In the $8 range. Hideki. Matt Kuchar was at 725. Moving down, I had Adam Hadwin, Minwoo Lee, Dylan Wu. I couldn't stop Dylan Wu, man. He's been too good to me. I got to give him one more run out there. And then sort of some of my penny stock guys, Pearson Cootie, Chad Ramey, and Satoshi Kodaira. Those are my 9 guys that I got this week.
Hatton, Hideki, Kuchar, Hadwin, Minwoo, Dylan Wu, Pearson Cootie, Chad Ramey, Satoshi Kodaira for Joe to try to keep the streak running. Let me refresh my board to make sure that I have the final numbers here. But I saw Scotty Scheffler. Yeah, there it is. $14 per share. So that is the second most expensive ever. His break-even position is 6th.
Yeah, it's about right. Like when we talked about the minus 115 for a top 5, ask him to finish 6th or better to return you a profit is actually a better position probably than taking that top 5, considering that you incrementally move up for every spot that he finishes better than 6. And if he finishes 7th or 8th, you lose a couple bucks. You don't get completely shelled out. So I actually think it's a good and worthy bet. I'm not that type of player in jock market to go up that high. I'd rather take my chances in having maximizing ROI on some of the guys further down the board, but an impressive number that we've seen be profitable for people if you play it right.
Tom Kim and Terrell Hatton both 955, which is impressive that Tom Kim got that high. And I think you got some value on Hatton there. His fair value was $1.20 higher than that.
Yep, his fair value was higher. His odds price is higher. He's the second best player, I think. Even though Tom Kim's on a nice run, I do feel like the value side of that coin is with Tyrrell.
It was a very quick late run for Taylor Montgomery, but he still finished $2 short of his own fair value, $6.14. I love the price on Eric Cole at $5.56 and Christian Bezuidenhout at $5.55. Honestly, the $5 range, I just give me all the shares of all those guys.
Yeah, you can take your pick. It's kind of one of those weeks where we talk about often where there's not a whole lot of separation between the $6 guys and the $4 guys, right? In terms of what you consider to be upside and finishing position. So you can take a handful in there that you see a little bit of good form and some positive trends with, and hope that they're able to return you some ROI.
Okay, well, listen, Joe, we've got a promo code. It's power. There's a link in the description. It'll get you a $100 deposit bonus. The fun just begins now because the live trading has begun. So you can continue this now in the live markets. The IPO was just that was just the start, just the beginning, and it's really just the beginning for us, Joe. Because when we talk this time next week, it'll be for the second major championship of the year.
I can't wait, dude. I'm excited to see Oak Hill in all of its glory. Like you mentioned, this thing just starts. We do have those afternoon Texas gusts that we've become familiar with this time of year in Texas. So something to continue to monitor as this market remains open now through the close on Sunday. But excited to be back here next week and talk Oak Hill with you. And I wouldn't be any other place on Wednesday nights than right here.
All right. Well, we will see you all then. In the meantime, you can follow Joe on Twitter. It is at TorPicks. You can find me at RickRunGood. This has been your Jock Market Power Hour for this week's AT&T Byron Nelson. Good luck.